Nigeria has had one too many building collapse in recent times. In 2024 alone, about 17 have been recorded, most of them with fatalities. The very recent death of 22 young and promising Nigerians due to this unsavory trend particularly calls for proactive measures and collective action to curb it. This edition of the program will attempt to look at this ugly trend, some of the causes, efforts to tackle it, and how well that is going. I am Omotola Omojola, and this is Dateline360. Thanks for tuning in. Building collapse in Nigeria in the last few years has been a growing concern for government and citizens alike. This is due to the devastating impact on the socio-economic development of the nation. In the wake of the recent building collapse in Jos Plateau State, which claimed innocent lives, a call to action is needed by all concerned to reduce the impact of this man-made disaster through awareness and policy formulation by the government. Essay Owamaka examines the causes, effects, and ways of tackling building collapse in Nigeria.
Building collapse, though a common phenomenon all over the world, is more rampant and devastating in developing countries like Nigeria, with its adverse effects on lives and property. Several causes of building failure, according to experts, has been attributed to either natural or man-made phenomena, such as the use of substandard building materials, poor workmanship, the use of quacks instead of professionals, non-enforcement of building codes or construction regulations, and corruption in the building industry have contributed immensely in most of the recorded cases of building failures.
Buildings, they have lifespan, where they are properly built right from the onset. You can have a building lasting up to 50 years and above. But one thing we lack here is the maintenance culture. Owners of buildings, they just put up the structure, correcting rents, and that's all. And because you fail to maintain those buildings, they deteriorate faster than expected.
So most of this building collapse is a result of the engineers handling the project, and the project they are handling, they are not satisfying the land textures, the road bending laws, and the architectural work of the building.
Building on drainages, areas where they are not supposed to build, such things are also part of the problem.
We have entered the rainy season, and we are living in a salty ground and waterlogged area. So any building that are not strongly built can have the effect.
According to reports by the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN, Nigeria has recorded 22 building collapses between January and July 2024. The report also states that Lagos takes the lead in the incidences of building collapse, with over 91 building collapse incidents resulting in more than 354 deaths from 2012 to 2024. Similarly, in Abuja, about 30 buildings have collapsed from 1993 to date, resulting in the death of more than 64 persons, leaving many injured. Most recent cases of building collapse across the country are those of Onitsha, Anambra State on June 12, 2024, Jos School building collapse on July 13, 2024 that left 22 students dead and 134 injured, as well as the Kubwa building collapse in Abuja. Considering this worrisome trend, how much effort has been invested in curbing incidences of collapsed buildings across the country?
At the national level, we're expecting to have an approval of the National Building Code. Yes, the professional has submitted one for over 15 years now, which has not been approved at the National Assembly. So this time there's need for an urgent, probably review of that submission because of the time. A lot of things has happened which need to be incorporated.
Government cannot be everywhere. And when you are building, I think they give out the license for you to build. But is there follow-up? Is there surveillance committees to follow up on this building? So they should step up their game.
Although some affected state governments have constituted panels of inquiry to investigate the various cases to find the immediate and remote causes to prevent future occurrences, experts say there is a need to do more.
We should not also push, even where they tell you, don't build here, that is not good. You cannot go behind and build it. And at the same time, somebody will not come and ratify that it's okay.
To curb incidences of building collapse in Nigeria, experts suggest that old buildings should be subjected to periodic inspections and tests of stability to ensure they are safe for habitation. They also call for stringent penalties for defaulters of building practices across the country. For Dateline360, S.A. Owamaka.
Now let's go to Jos, where 22 children unfortunately lost their lives to the tragic collapse of their school building that was supposed to be a refuge away from home for them. Particularly for school buildings, one will expect optimum diligence in the process of construction, considering the number of lives school buildings accommodate and how delicate they are. Caleb Gochin has been following this story for NTA and now takes a look at some of the likely causes of the Busabuji school building collapse, among others, and the way forward.
The rainy season comes with its attendant consequences, which are majorly flood and destruction or collapse of buildings, becoming the two major concerns of residents, especially those whose properties are situated on flood-prone or waterlogged areas. With the recent incident of school building collapse at Busabuji in Jos, questions are being raised to why measures are not being properly taken to avert such occurrences. In most cases, high-rise structures are more susceptible to collapse, and many school proprietors, especially privately owned, opt for story buildings for want of space and resources. This notwithstanding, key players in the housing sector have over time cautioned developers against compromising on standards. However, proper monitoring seems to be lacking.
To insist on carrying out integrity tests on all distressed buildings, especially those around the collapsed building site. The sign of distress is clearly shown.
We also observed that some of the reinforcement that were used were substandard. And not that only, in terms of the dimensions, that is the thickness of the reinforcement, some of them did not meet what it should be. Take for instance, the stirrups. Using stirrups of 6 mm is very, very inadequate. And not that only, even the spacing of the stirrups were not supposed to be.
The Plateau State government had earlier come up with an executive order to check the proliferation of illegal structures within the Jos Bukuru Greater Master Plan. And with the recent development where precious lives were taken, it is more resolved to clamp down on such defaulters.
With the recent collapse, it has just sped up processes, because right now we have reports of over 31 schools which we are visiting and checking to verify all the reports that have gotten to us. We've opened our portals for people to give us feedback where they see that there are buildings that need government attention, most especially public and private buildings. And His Excellency has also put in place a high-powered committee that is going to ensure that it investigates the whole of these issues.
It will be recalled that the state witnessed 4 major building collapses in recent years before the Friday 12th incident.
The call that is being reiterated, especially after the unfortunate incident, is for everyone to follow due process before erecting any structure, and for those living along waterways to relocate. For Dateline360, Caleb Gochin.
From Jos, we go to Southeast, Anambra State precisely, a state that has had a disturbing share of the recent building collapse in Nigeria. Franklin Oyekachi examines the complacency of people with their lives, even in the face of danger. She also spoke with stakeholders on measures to checkmate the menace.
Onitsha, the commercial nerve center of Anambra State, is densely populated with lots of high-rise buildings, making the issue of housing of great importance and building collapse worrisome. Out of the many cases of building collapse in the state, Onitsha and its environs have witnessed about 7 cases, including that of Oduigbo in Ochanja Market, Basin Street in Fege, and DMGS Centenary Building. While many old buildings are still standing strong, new ones and those still under construction are collapsing. Some old buildings are also very dilapidated, posing serious threat to lives. This building at Vein Road North, Onitsha, is under an alarming threat. However, people are still occupying it. Are they not scared?
There are so many families that host the building. So the building can destroy just like not like a maintenance. I'm also scared because I'm mortal, not immortal. It's risky now, it's risky, but we still pray to God that nothing should happen.
In the building, if the building nada, it was an obody, and then you go for Papua, but ya na emebo ka if I rap with the Madina, if you know your
How professional are builders in the state and how often are they patronized?
The developers will try to make the engineers compromise standards. For instance, the developer might ask the engineer, this building was built with the sum of 10 million. And why not build the same with sum of 10 million here? It's not like that. Buildings are built considering the purpose.
Since we came, we have tried to strengthen the approval process to substantially mitigate collapse of buildings. One thing people don't know, anything that involves human beings, you are always likely to have human error. The Anambra State Fiscal Planning Board law is being reviewed. So, we've looked at some of the other planning jurisdictions like Lagos, and we have looked at it. The governor said, well, I've talked to the government of Lagos. Their law looks interesting. Can we look at it and modify our own and structure it to be like Lagos?
The State Building Approval Body and other stakeholders have put measures in place to checkmate the menace.
We have put in place what we call the one-stop shop. One-stop shop is that from now on, every major building, not small bungalows and so on, every major building now, we will have a team nominated by the professional bodies, the engineers, structural engineers, civil engineers, the architects, builders, who come to assist our team in approvals. When the approval is done, they will also nominate professionals that monitor these buildings. Any building that a developer brings, we require you to get an engineer who is certified by Koren and who undertakes to supervise the building from beginning till completion. So if there is any failure, you'll be held responsible and you could lose your license.
During our inspection, we noticed that when we came to some sites, then we asked for the engineers. They were nowhere to be found. On one occasion, one had to run on citing us. So I know that with time, government will do more in the area of regulation.
They also dropped a word of advice to the public, developers, and building professionals.
If you go to the market, the size of 16 mm in the market is not the size we used to get in the olden days. It's a fact. I will advise when you're doing your calculations, you should put that into consideration. For instance, if you want to use 4Y16, what I mean by 4Y16 is 4 bars of 16 mm rod. You might decide to increase it to 6Y16 so that it will compensate for any anticipated loss.
Stakeholders say maintenance culture, proper supervision, and adherence to building rules and regulation will help curb the menace. In Onitsha, Franklin Onyekachi, reporting for Dateline360.
We take a break now. More perspectives when we return.
Harmony of biodiversity destroyed, birthing climate crisis and crime faces.
dicey situation indeed, yet we carry on like a bull in a china shop.
On environment matters, we take the bull by the horns, comb the nooks and cranny of Nigeria.
Asking tough questions.
Examining challenges and opportunities.
Giving human face to the science, facts, faiths, and global agreements. It's a call for action. Don't miss it.
Join award-winning environmental journalist Jennifer Igwe and other NTA Eco reporters for Environment Matters.
There have been talks on quality of building materials and how it undermines the structural integrity of buildings, not to talk of the significant threat to human lives and property, which far outweigh any perceived cost savings. A rapidly urbanizing city, kind of like other fast-growing cities, faces a pressing concern about the proliferation of substandard building materials in its markets. Fatima Sanusi visited the building material market in Kano to investigate this issue and shed light on the risks associated with these inferior materials.
The quest of affordable housing has paved way for emergence of quack building engineers and the proliferation of markets of building materials in Kano, and consumers often prioritize cost over quality, compromising safety. This is as a result of influx of substandard building materials allegedly imported from China and other Asian countries, in addition to other materials removed from old buildings.
Kano, like many other cities in the country, has experienced series of building collapse in recent years, including this year. Could it be related to the quality of building materials being used in such projects?
As marketers, whatever you come and say that you need, I will show you the varieties of the woods that we have down. It is based on your pocket and what you have, then you can buy. If you need the most qualitative one, we have. If you need the less qualitative ones, that is based on the prices. And nowadays, you know, Nigeria, we are facing our economic crisis. Most of the people are going for the lesser price ones. Let's say if there is the one for 10,000 and there is the one for 2,500, 75% of the people would prefer to buy the one for 2,500 than the 10,000 one.
Nkatako Market is a hub for building materials which remain a home of some of the substandard building materials at giveaway prices. Abdullahi is a dealer of such materials with an array of inferior materials sourced both locally and internationally, but admits that meeting client demands often supersede safety considerations.
These are high-quality materials that can stand the test of time, and they come at a higher price. We also offer more affordable options. However, we cannot sell to people what they do not want to buy.
Experts warn that this approach is a recipe for disaster. Safety and stability of buildings are paramount, and yet the use of inferior materials seems to undermine these critical factors, with dual consequences of accelerated wear and tear, as well as serious threat to safety of the occupants.
As professionals who deal in the built environment, our major concern is the compliance with the dictates of the master plan.
The collapse of a 3-story building in Kuntau area, which claimed lives and injured many way back, serves as a reminder of the devastating repercussions of substandard materials. As the demand of affordable housing continues to rise, it's crucial that quality and safety are prioritized.
So finding balance between quality and affordability is important. to ensure safety. In Kano, Fatima Sanusi Garai, Dateline 360.
Building codes in Nigeria have established minimum standard guidelines and regulation to be observed in a construction, as well as sanctions to be meted out to professionals who contravene these codes of ethics. With recurrent building collapse in parts of the country, including the Federal Capital Territory, how much of adherence to these regulatory frameworks do citizens observe? Onotu Yakubu brings us perspectives to this life-threatening industry challenge.
The events of the recent past in the Federal Capital Territory seem to stress the lack of strict adherence to building codes for the smooth operation of the construction industry. The construction of buildings and enforcement of standards is a collective responsibility of professionals in the built environment, stretching from the land surveyor to the town planners, architects, quantity and estate surveyors, and builders. High-rise buildings are professional responsibilities of the civil and structural engineers to design based on principles to enable them stand the test of time and prevent disaster that may occur. Ben Osi Oko is the chairman, Nigerian Society of Engineers, FCT. Although not apportioning the entirety of the blame outside the statutory role of his profession, he feels that developers over time have imbibed the culture of sharp practices to undermine standards in construction, culminating into the attendant threats to lives currently faced at such sites.
If a building collapses, it means somebody has compromised somewhere, because you begin with submission, vetting. It goes through, and I know the people in the vetting rooms, they are good engineers that when you see the process of vetting until you get approval and you now come back to implementation, construction, that is where the problem starts. So after every stage, they are supposed to come and look at what you have done to ensure that what you have done is in conformity with the approval they have given to you.
Beyond the utilization of substandard equipment to compromise structural integrity, according to experts in most cases, geologists also advocate the enactment of frameworks to mandate soil examination and evaluation, taking topography into cognizance to determine the viability of certain projects on specific locations.
With our industry is the aspect of the fact that usage of those materials are not done in line with the expectation of engineering design. And many times either it is underused or most times it's underused, not even overused, they are underused. Because you could have an element of having to use the iron rods, design that, okay, you use a particular diameter of a rod and a particular number in a particular span of maybe a column or maybe a beam or maybe a slab. And maybe by virtue of any other reason, either to cut corners or maybe to save costs or maybe just to embolden some bad practices, might end up leading to use of substandard materials.
When incidences such as the recent building collapse in Kubwa occur, emergency and rescue responses are stretched for days, and this puts to question the need to buttress whistleblowing to alert regulatory institutions to prevent disasters.
Within 20 days, we recorded 7 building collapses. To the glory of God, there was no loss of life. But that does not mean that we fold our hands and sit down because nobody died. No. And all these buildings were under either renovations or there were building defects, which they did not go back, and Development Control had marked such structures and they did not go back to find out what the defects were, where they need to effect some corrections, where they need to have more reinforcement, and at the same time, for them to check the quality of materials they are using.
Oftentimes, when structures are marked, it's not about demolishing that structures. It's drawing the attention of the developer to stop further development until issues are rectified. But you know, who we are in this part of the world, people hardly respect authorities. That's why you see sometimes we are hard on them. Like this structure is an existing structure that has been here for more than 20 years. But obviously, you could see some modifications and renovations taken on.
To entrench a culture of public safety and effectively prevent disasters resulting from these self-induced hazards, observers say the regulatory institutions need to wield the hammer of sanctions to put an end to the trend. In Abuja, Onotu Yakubu for Dateline360.
And with that report, we conclude this edition of Dateline 360 and expect that efforts should be intensified to ensure that all professional steps are taken to end building collapse in Nigeria. It must be intentional. On behalf of all of us here, I thank you for spending the last half hour with us. I am Amotola Omojola. God bless Nigeria.